Okay, yay! It finally came up. Uh, I just had some technical difficulties. Let's say that much. Um, Starting a little bit late. It's 8:15. Took me 15 minutes just to get this started. And let's see. Are you coming up? Nope, nope, nope. Of course not. Why would you want to come up when I really want you to come up? Of course not. So if you guys are just joining me, give me a heads up in the chat. Let me know that you're actually here. I'm still trying to get this blooming thing to work properly so I can actually and let's see, let's look up night time reading. Alright. Reading hour, okay. Take two. Alright, so I've got it working. I've got now the chat up. No, I don't want to watch myself on my TV. Okay. Okay, so finally we've got it up and we've got it going. Alright. Okay, so finally we got it up and we've got it going. So I don't see anybody. Oh, there's some. Well, no, that's me. That's me in the chat. That's me. I think. So if Joni is going to be coming in, that would be great. If okay, so let's see. Calls, questions, help, stream setup. Okay, so we are live and hello, Kaylee, or Kaylee, is that my pronounced name? Thanks for joining us. It's gonna be about 5 more minutes to get everything going, and then we're going to actually get going with the reading. It was Facebook being funky, wonky. Oh, good. Oh, good. I got it right. Okay. Glad to know I'm pronouncing somebody's name right. Okay. All right. So just giving everybody about 5 more minutes, like I said. So we should get started. Since we started a little bit late, we're going to be starting at 8:25. So until we get going, I'm just going to get set up, and then you can chat amongst yourself. Being that there's only one of you in the chat, you can chat with yourself or me. But the selections I've got for you tonight are. Okay, I gotta turn this off. At least the sound off, because why is this not working? Okay, I gotta pause that. I guess I can pause the video and keep looking at the chat, because it's easier to see the chat on my phone than it is on the computer for some reason. But the selections we've got for you tonight is The Last Tale of Macromphin, which is the Macromphin and the Cave of Cats. And if you've ever been to Ireland, there actually is a Cave of the Cats in Ireland itself. I haven't been, but I heard that it's an interesting experience. Let's put it that way. It's very much attributed to the Morrigan and her legends and things like that. So I haven't read this tale yet. So we'll see what he does with the Cave of Cats. And I've also got, if we have time, if you're willing. I got the first chapter of Jane Austen's Persuasion, which is one of my favorites of hers. So that's one other thing. And then I've also got, of course, British Goblins that I from as well. Reading one chapter, of course, from the British Goblins is interesting, to say the least. There's a lot of folklore, a lot of fairy tales in here, but you'll have to forgive the author's tone, and you'll see what I mean if you are listening to it. So let me close the window. I was letting air in here because I think it's somewhat hot up here because the circulation's awesome in this apartment. So that's where we are. So I had the fan going to get it down to a good room temperature. Oh, hello, Travis Groves. We're just going to be getting started in a couple of minutes, around 8:25. We had a little bit of a late start due to me futzing around with Facebook and Facebook being Facebook. Let's just put it that way. To keep from swearing, we're just going to say it was being Facebook. Let's put it that way. Okay. Tried to keep this family friendly, as far as I'm aware. Maybe trying. So how are you guys doing with all this isolation stuff that's been going on? I know me and my partner Vernon are staying home a lot, as I'm sure a lot of people are, being with the stay-at-home order that's going on in California, and the fact that he's my partner, my fiance actually is the term I could use. He does not have fully functioning lungs, I think is the way he puts it. So he has to stay home, and I basically do all the stuff and make sure I take all the precautions to make sure I'm keeping him safe. But just wondering how all you guys are doing. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you people are staying safe and enjoying being at home, I guess. I know some people are having a very hard time of it. Trying to stay sane. Yes, that is a good, what is the word? Good cause. For some people more than others, it may be a hopeless cause, but I'm hoping it's a good cause, and it's always a good cause to stay sane. Yes. Okay. So just give it a couple more minutes, like 2 more minutes, and then we'll get started with McCrompton and the Cave of Cats and the other pieces that I have with me if we have time. Okay. It's flipping hot up here. Let's just make it hot. And I've got all the lights on too, so. Working on more of my craft though. What kind of craft is that? Is that magic craft or actual crafting of physical things, or a mixture of both? So I know I'm watching a lot of TV too. I just got through the first 6 episodes of Picard because CBS is actually doing a promotion where they're actually doing free subscriptions to their movie service. So that's what I've been watching a lot of. I've been on the computer a lot. Magicraft mostly. Okay, all right. I should probably get on and actually do some of that too. My altar in the kitchen has been a little bit neglected as of late. Yeah, it's a great promotion, and I honestly don't know if it was actually planned or if the actor himself actually prompted it. But either way is is realistic as the other, and Joni, where are you? There's another lady who might be joining us. Though I don't know if she was able to find the new stream because I had to, as you might have seen, I had to start a new stream. Is there a share button? I can actually share this. Facebook. I love you, Facebook. I love you, Facebook. Really, 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 I do. Not. Oh, I can share this. Okay. All right. How do you share it with people? I can go through Messenger probably. Okay. Yes. I have Messenger up. Yes, that's. I love Facebook. I really do. Trying to sound cheerful. Try to sound cheerful. Okay. New stream. Let's see if I can get them. Let's paste. And she's got the. Is it coming up? The same one? Okay. We'll see. We'll see if she comes on. Really, I do. Let's just mute that so that. All right, John Hyatt. Oh, John. Okay. Hi, John. So we're going to get started here, and we should have got started a minute ago, but Joni kind of distracted me. Facebook distracted me. It's well. So we're going to get started, and we're going to start, as I may have mentioned several times, is the last story in the McCrompton Tales. And if you want to pick this up, it is available on Amazon, I believe, for $8.99. Just look up G.R. Groves. And by the way, G.R. Groves is a fellow ADF member, and she is a fantastic writer, fantastic storyteller, and fantastic speaker. So pick up a couple of her books, and she's also got a series called the Storyteller series, and this is where these stories actually come from. One of the main characters is McCrompton, and these are a number of his tales, of his adventures. So let's move on to McCrompton and the Cave of Cats. Okay, Joni made it. Okay, good. All right, easily distracted. Very, very easily distracted. All right, so moving on. All right, getting started. On the plains of Connacht, near what was once the Palace of Maeve, there is more than one cave. Some of them are small, or cannot be entered by men, such as Owi on Iska, the Cave of the Waters, from whence flows a healing spring. Some of them are hidden, and would lead, if they could only be found, to the halls of the Sidhe, the old gods, the people of Danu. And some of them can be found and entered, but only by the very foolish or the very brave. And the greatest of these, last, is the cave called Owe Nagat, the Cave of the Cats. From the Cave of the Cats, on most nights of the year, even brave men keep away. For out of it after dark may come ghosts and monsters, and all manner of dangerous things. The three-headed creature, which was called the Ellen Trecken, came out of it once, and ravaged all the countryside, until it was killed by Mergin Mac Icket, the poet who fostered Cuchulainn. A flock of red, flame-breathing birds came out of it once, and withered all the crops of Ulster. And another time, a herd of ravaging magical swine laid waste to Maeve's lands. And from Owen Owe Nagat, 3 giant wild cats, which Kukuk overcame at Bekriu's feast. And on Samhain Eve, Morgan himself comes and goes through that cave. The great queen who carries life and death in her cloak. Not even the Hound of Ulster would have gone needlessly into Owaganat on that night. And the wisest of the Druids was wiser by far than he. But there was need. It happened in the harvest month, the month that ends with Samhain, when Mac Crimthan had been in Ireland for almost 30 years. Not a young man he was by then, yet not old. His back was still straight, and his arms still strong, and his eyes still saw clearly. If there was gray now in his dark hair and beard, and the weight of his wisdom outweighed it, he was honored and welcome wherever he came in this land. And that year, he was living at Emanmacha and teaching all who come to him for learning, young men and women alike, to the number of 110. The Druids taught them by memory, not by written word, even as many of the Fid still do. And often they taught in the open air. Macrimthan had been leading many of his beginning students in chanting a lesson, seated under a great oak tree, whose leaves were slowly changing to an autumnal gold. When looking out over their heads, he saw approaching a party of tall, richly dressed young men. They were clad as if for a journey, and there were horses with them. Horses which had been ridden far and hard that day. Macrimthan went on to the end of his lesson, and then, dismissing his students, came forward to meet the strangers. "How fares the world in Connacht this autumn?" he asked, for he knew by something in their dress that they came from that land. "And what brings you here to Emen today, in haste?" "Lord," said their leader, a tall young warrior with long yellow hair, "things fare badly in Connacht, and so we have come to ask your aid." "5 years ago, a man of the Sidhe came into our king's hall from the cave of cats, and he made a singing magic which held all there in sleep. And while they slept, he stole away the king's young wife, and his only daughter, and his favorite hound. He was offered their weight in gold and fine silver, and who would go into the and bring those 3 back out again. But none can be found, for the entrance to that cave is guarded by magic and monsters, and courage alone will not suffice to let a man pass. All of Ireland knows the strength of your magic, Lord. If you will come back with us now and save those 3, the king will give you all you ask. up to half the lordship of Connaught. Will you come? Hmm. Macrimson looked long at him and shook his head. I do not bargain for gold or silver, he said, nor sell my learning for land. Go back to your king, and say that I will not come. Lord, said another of the young warriors, and this one with hair the color of bright flame, let me add my asking to that of my brother. Come back with us now and save those 3 who were stolen, and the king will make you his chief judge and adviser. You may order all the affairs of his kingdom. You may loose and bind as you choose. The king will do nothing except at your word. Will you come? Crimson looked long at him and shook his head. I do not bargain for power, he said. I know the names of the stars and speak with the gods. I can make poetry and curse or cure with a word. It is your king who would be better for this bargain, not I. Go back to him now and say that I will not come. Lord, said the 3rd of the young warriors, and this one with hair as the raven. My brothers have spoken as best they can. Now, if you will, hear me. For love of his wife and daughter, my king would lay down his life. If you bring them back safe to the light of the sun and moon, you may have his blood dispel for your gods on your high altar, and his head to hang from this tree. For this price will you come? Macrimson looked long at him, and shook his head. I do not bargain for blood, he said. My gods have from me all that they may desire. If they want my life, or any others, they can take it will. Go back to your king, and say that I will not come. Lord, said the first warrior then, will nothing change your mind? For if you do not help us, I think no one can. Macrimson looked up then at the golden oak above him, and the high clear sky with its thin streamers of cloud. And he thought deeply, and at last he sighed. Yes, he said, for the sake of the woman and the child who are taken, and also the loyal hound, for those I will come. But it is not certain that I, even I, will deceive. Then, Lord, said the first warrior, will you come with us now? For Samhain is close upon us, and I think time presses. Let me fetch 3 things from my house, and bid farewell to my woman, said Macrimson. Then I will come. Macrimson went to his house, and told what had passed to him, the one who came of Cathbed's line. The sun and the moon on your pathway then, O beloved, she said, and she kissed him. And she took a silver ring from her finger, which he had once given her, and put it on his hand. Let that be my help, she said, when you need. Then took his cloak and his crane bag and the carved rod of hazelwood, which he himself had made long ago, and turning his face from her, he went out of the house. The 3 young warriors saw him coming, and the mist and sorrow wrapped like a cloak around him, and they were afraid. But he silently mounted the gray horse they had brought for him, and with them he rode away. 3 days they were on the road, 3 days of bright autumn weather, and at last they came to the place where the king's house stood. All in the court were relieved to see Crimson, and counted the prisoners as good as safe already. But his words to the king put paid to their delight. "Lord King," he said, "I have not come here for your asking, but only for the sake of those who were stolen away. But since you would have offered so much, I do ask this bargain of you. I will go into Nagat tomorrow, and if my gods will it, I will bring your wife and your daughter and your hound out safely within 3 days. But if I fail and do not come back, let you go to my woman at Amain and grant to her whatever she asks of you. For I myself was born fatherless after my own father's death, and in this way I would provide for my children to come. By the gods my people swear by," said the king, "whatever she requires, she shall have. May I die forsworn if I deliver it not." And with that promise, Crimson was content. The next morning, he arose before the sun and made his preparations. And when he was ready, he went to Nagat. Now, if you yourself should go there today, you may find changes. But in those days, the cave opened as a lipless mouth in the earth, in the midst of a grove of ancient, twisted trees. Out of it rose cold mist and the sound of falling water. Crimson wrapped his cloak around his shoulders to have out his way, and began to climb down into that mouth. The rocks were slick with mud beneath his sandals, and he went bent double, holding with his hands to the walls, his only light, the faint daylight which came down from above. But presently the slope became less steep, and the cave roof higher, and he could stand erect. He pulled his carved rod from his belt, where he had thrust it for safekeeping, and spoke a word over it, and it began to faintly glow. By its light he walked on, deeper into Nagat. Above him, walls rose up steeply into the darkness, beyond the reach of his light, and nowhere were they farther apart than the span of his arms. Sometimes he walked through pools of stagnant water, where the brown mud sucked at his feet, and always the air was as cold as winter's breath. Slowly, The walls came closer and closer together, so that at last it was hard to pass between them. Yet his imbus told him that this way the captives had gone. At last, when he could go no further, he spoke a different word over his rod, and its light was extinguished. Then in the icy darkness, held close in the arms of the earth, he closed his eyes and prayed aloud to his gods. O great Lord Dagda, builder of the hills and digger of valleys, hear my voice and widen this passage for me. 5 years of my time in Ireland will I give up, if you will open my way. Dagda heard, and when Macrimthon opened his eyes, the walls had moved back, and he could pass. He spoke to his rod again, and once more it glowed softly, and by its light he walked on. But he had paid his first forfeit. In the world above, time was passing swiftly. A day and a night had gone by since Macrimthon entered the cave. But in the world below, time passed at a different rate. It seemed to Macrimthon that he had been walking for no great while when he came to another check. The passage he was following opened into a high, round hall, like the vaulted chamber which legend says lies in the heart of the hill of Angus, beside the banks of the Boyne. In the center of this hall, Macrimthon saw a great black bowl carved from the block of a stone, and around its rim ran a twisting serpent of symbols, not unlike the ones on his rod, all inlaid with silver and gold and many-colored gems. And from the hall led 3 high-arched doorways, each as like the others as one pea in a pod is to the next. And Macrimthon knew that one of these ways was the bright hall of the Sidhe, where those he sought were held captive, and one to the dark forest where the monsters roam, which sometimes come out of Owain Nagat to ravage Ireland, and one to the blood-red land of the Morgon herself, from which there is no escaping. But here his imbus failed him, and which of the 3 was which he could not tell. He looked into the stone bowl, and saw it was half filled with some clear liquid. When he held his hand over its surface, a little mist rose up, filled with small flickers of red and green and gold. Then this then was he, and by his learning and his imbus, he saw how to use it. But nothing in magic is done without a price. Macrimthon untied the strings of the crane bag which hung from his belt, and out of it he took a small knife, no longer than his hand. Its handle was polished antler from one of the great stags which once roamed in Ireland, and its blade was flaked from some black stone, shiny as glass, and sharp enough to cut the wind. It was clear to him, for it was very old, and won long ago at no small cost. He weighed it in his hand for a moment, then with it he pricked his left thumb, so that 3 drops of his blood ran out and covered the blade. Reaching out, he dropped the knife into the stone bowl and knew that some part of his power went with it. A mist rose up from the water, and through it, the doorway showed golden, red, and green. He chose the golden one and walked through it, but behind him in the basin, the knife had disappeared. In the world above, time was passing swiftly. 2 days and 2 nights had gone by since Crimson entered the cave. But again, it seemed to him that he had been walking for no great while, when ahead of him he saw a golden light. As he approached it, it grew brighter and brighter, and suddenly he found himself in a grove of spring trees, and ahead of him, across a stretch of green turf, was a high-built golden hall. He came into the hall and found it full of high-born warriors and maidens, laughing and singing. But no one spoke to him or seemed to see him at all. Near the far end of the hall, he saw a kingly, yellow-haired man sitting in a golden chair, and beside him a sad young woman with a little girl on her lap, and at their feet a great grey hound. These alone seemed to see Macrimthon as he approached and stopped before them. "What is it you do here, man of learning?" asked the king, for none but the poet or a magician could find his way to this hall. "Answer one question first for me, king," said Macrimthon, "and I will answer the question which you have asked," said the king. "Why did you steal away the wife and daughter and the favorite hound of the king of Connaught?" "I stole the woman to be my wife, and the girl to keep her with me, and the hound to guard them both when I am away. Now it is for you to answer my questions." "I have come for 3 treasures," said Macrimthon, "and until I get them from you, I shall not leave." "That is all one to me," said the king, "but you shall not get them, though you stay as long as you like, and do what you will." "I shall," said Macrimthon. And his belt, where he rested on the cave, and spoke a word over it, and it came a pipe, but a pipe such as no one in Ireland had ever seen before. And he began to play on it, and the music he played was a wailing like the wind caught in a hollow tree, and a moaning like a cow giving birth to 3 calves, and a roaring like the storm waves that crash against the high black cliffs of Moan. All the folk in the hall stopped their singing and laughing, and clapped their hands to their ears. "Stop, man," cried the king. "Stop your horrible playing at once, or we will throw you out of the hall." "Ah," said Macrimson, pausing for just a moment. "But you said I might stay as long as I liked, and do what I will, and my will, O king, is to play music for your company." And he began to play again, and this time the pipe howled like a famine wolf in a bitter winter, and squealed like a stuck pig when the knife goes in, and screamed like 10,000 stallions trapped in a burning barn. "Stop, man, stop!" cried the king at last. "I will give you one of the 3 treasures that you desire. Only play your cursed pipe no more in my hall." And on the words, Macrimson ceased to play, and the pipe became again his carven rod. "That was a good decision, O king," he said, "and the first treasure I choose is the king of Connacht's wife. Take her then. But the child and the hound remain behind with me. Now go." "Ah, but you said I might stay as long as I liked, and do what I will. My will, O king, is to chant poems for your company." And he took a performer's stance and began to chant. And the satires he chanted were bitter and biting as death. The first 10 words that he spoke brought pockmarks and blisters to the king's face, and the next 10 turned his hair into mangy gray. And the third changed his beautiful hands to filthy green claws. Macrimson sang the embroidered hangings of the wall to cobwebs and trailing rats, and its floor to the muck of a sty 3 years uncleaned. And he sang the king's fine folk within to old bent hags. "Stop, man, stop!" shrilled the king at last from his blackened, toothless mouth. "I will give you the second of the 3 treasures that you desire. Only cease to satirize me and my folk." And on the words, Macrimson ceased his satire, and sang a song of praise instead, and all was as it had been before. "That was a good decision, O king," he said then, "and the second treasure I choose is the king of Connacht's daughter. Take her then," said the king. "But the hound at least remains behind with me. Now go." "Ah, but you said I might stay as long as I liked, and do what I will, and my will, O king, and my will, O king, is to tell tales for your company." And he began to tell a tale so horrible that the torches dimmed, and the sunlight outside faded, and the cold wind, like a hungry ghost, came prowling through the hall. The folk there, who had never known fear, now huddled together and shivered. The king's eyes moved back and forth, tracking things half seen or half heard. The hearth fires flickered and burned blue, and from outside came the sound of heavy, dragging footsteps. "Stop, man, stop!" cried the king at last, as the walker loomed in the doorway. "I will give you the third of the 3 treasures that you desire. Only cease to tell your tale." And on the words, Macrimson ceased the telling, and the fires burned high, and the monster was gone from the doorway. "That was a good decision, O king," he said then, And the third treasure I choose is the King of Connacht's favorite hound. Take him then, and now have all that you came for. Will you go? If I may take the three safely away with me, then yes, O king, I will go. Left the hall, in his arms, and walking beside him, and the great hound following behind to make sure that they were safe. They crossed the green meadow and found the cave, and began to make their way through it. They passed the high room with its great black bowl, now empty, and walked the long passage to the place where the dog forced the walls apart at Macrimthon's prayer. As they came to the steep muddy slope which led to the wall above, then Macrimthon looked up and saw that the fading light was that of twilight, and it came to him through his sense that it was Samhain Eve. Lady, he said to the King of Connacht's wife, can you climb up unaided with your child on your back? I can, she said, though the way were twice as long, but it will take me some time. Then go, and go as quickly as you can, for my imbus tells me that the Morrigan is coming now through the cave, and as she does every Samhain, and she must not find us here. But leave the hound with me, and together we will bar her path while you escape. Then when you have left the cave, call the hound to you, and I will follow him, if I can. The strength of the sun and moon be on you for what you are doing, said the king's wife, and with her little daughter clinging to her shoulders, she began to climb. And Macrimthon turned his face back to Owenagat, and he waited for the Morrigan. Against his left thigh he felt the hard, warm shoulder of the hound, and its great rough head under his hand, and the touch of it gave him comfort. For how he might win this last contest, he did not know, and he was weary indeed. Then, in the distance, he saw a red glowing light, like a fire but darker, which turned the wet of the cave to flowing blood. The hound growled low in its throat and began to quiver, and he felt the stiff hair lift along its spine. He stroked it, and in the thick fur at its neck, he touched a wide leather collar, and he twined his fingers through it to hold the dog in leash. When he looked up again, the bloody light was stronger, and in its center he saw the Morrigan, coming in the shape of a great red cow. He held up his rod, and it glowed with a light like pure silver. But the Morrigan saw it, and deep in her belly she laughed. "What is your little light to me, O fool?" she said, "for none but a fool would stand in my path tonight. Only a pale candle is, I know, O great queen," said Macrimthon quietly, "yet it serves to show that I am here, barring your way." The Morrigan came closer. Her great wide hooves crushed the rocks into sand where she stood, and her bulging sides seemed to push the cave walls further apart as she passed. 3 eyes she had, all as red as glowing embers, and 3 nostrils, each as black as a meat crow's heart. And the breath she breathed on Macrimthon was choking and hot and foul. "What do you do here, O fool?" Her dark voice grumbled. Tell me before I tread you to a bloody pulp. I am here on my own business, O great queen, said Macrimthon quietly. Stay but a little, and I will move from your path. The Morgan laughed again. No man alive delays me. I will have your blood and your magic from you for your assumption. And lifting up her awful head, she spat at him, a long tongue of scarlet flame. It struck his carved rod, and the rod exploded into splinters, so that they pierced his hand and his face, and his own blood blinded him. But the silver light from his hand did not go out, and when Macrimthon blinked his eyes clear, he saw the ring on his bloody finger shining in the darkness like a star, and remembered what his woman had said when she placed it there. And despite his pain and his fear and his weariness, he smiled. That was not well done, O great queen, he said quietly. How shall I offer you gifts when you treat me so? What are your gifts to me, O fool, said the Morrigan. The only gift I want from you tonight is your life. And she came closer, each hoof striking the ground with a crash which shook the stone. Beside Macrimthon, the hound growled louder, then began to bark with a deep, roaring voice. Wait, O great queen, he shouted over the tumult. As I am a fool, let me entertain you before I die. The Morrigan laughed again. I need no jests tonight. And she opened her mouth and began to choke his leg, so that his legs failed him, and he fell to his knees in the mud. With all the strength he had left to him, he clung with both hands to the hound's collar, and behind him in the distance he heard the king's wife call. The hound heard it too. Trembling, about to spring at Morgan, it hesitated. When the king's wife called again, the huge dog turned and ran, holding on to its collar as it leapt and clawed and scrambled. Macrimthon was dragged up the steep rocky slope and out of Owanagat. Behind him, as he went, he heard the Morgan bawling with laughter at the sight he made. And he laughed to himself in his heart. For only a wise man knows when it serves him best to be appearing the fool. And Macrimthon was truly 6 days later, he came to his home again, and his woman met him at the door. But she only smiled and said, You are back. And he said, I am. And he kissed her and went in. And that is the tale of Macrimthon and the Cave of the Cats. Alright, that's the last tale of Macrimthon I've got for you guys tonight. And it is 9:08, and we started at 25, so we've got about maybe 20 more minutes to go. Double checking messages. Nobody's messaged me, so was the sound okay? You guys didn't fall during my recitation, did you? Because I've got at least one more thing I can read you if you guys are willing, and with the last 10 minutes we've got here, if you guys are willing. A couple places marked in British Goblins. Hello, Vernon, and thank you guys all for all you guys who for all you people who were joining me. There's several of you quite get to see everybody that joined in. This is the last video. So I've got last thing to give you guys. If you guys enjoyed that and you guys want to continue for a little bit longer until the end of, until about 9:20, 9:25, something like that, to round out the full hour. Okay, I've got at least one piece in here that I'd like to. And ironically enough, it's about caves as well. So this is a Welsh folk piece of folklore, and it's in the chapter of British goblins called Bells, Wells, Stones, and Dragons. Okay, so we're just going to read this last one, and I think that'll take us to the last bit of the show. So, all right. So, this last piece. Okay. And by the way, this is Welsh, and as everybody knows, Welsh is terribly hard to pronounce. So bear with me as I probably will mispronounce and stumble through all of the Welsh that's involved here. I'll try my best, but just bear with me. And do apologize for all the Irish that I mangled in the last one. I tried my best. But alright, so for the last bit, this is a fairly short piece. So we'll just end with this. Alright. In a certain cavern in Glamorganshire, called the Sigfrane, or the Cavern of the Ravens, is said to be a chest of gold, washed over by two birds of gloomy plumage. In a darkness so profound that nothing can be seen but the fire of their sleepless eyes. To go there with a purpose of disturbing them is to bring on a heaving and a rolling of the ground, accompanied by thunder and lightning. A swaggering drove from Brecknockshire, though warned by a dark woman that he had better not try it, sneered that a couple of ravens were a fine matter to be afraid of indeed, and ventured into the cavern with a long rope about his waist and a lantern in his hand. Some men accompanied him, seeing that he was bent on this rash and dangerous enterprise, held the coil of rope and paid it out as he went further and further in. The result was prompt and simple. The sky cracked with loud bursts of thunder and flashes of lightning, and the drover roared with affright and rushed out of the dark cavern with his hair on end. No coaxing ever prevailed him to reveal the terrible sights he had seen, which, questioned, he would only repeat in Welsh, the advice of Punch to those about to marry. Which makes absolutely no sense, so he was probably driven mad by what he saw, just putting it out there. And by the way, this particular book is a collection of folk tales from Wales, and yes, it's called British Goblins, but it's about stuff in Wales. But that's one such tale that was told to the man writing it was of 1800s. One of many of these collected. I believe is where this one was collected. It was a terribly interesting story, I swear. Where's that other one? There's one in here that I actually like a little bit better. Alright, there's another one. And we still got like maybe 10 more minutes, so maybe time for one more from here. If you guys are enjoying all this. I find them terribly interesting, so I always continue reading them, but let me know if you would like me to try something else or continue. Alright. A tradition is current in the 1800s in Mathaverne, in the parish of Llanryn, in the cantref of Cephalic, concerning a certain wood called the Forest of the Yew. That it is so called on account of the magical yew tree, which grows exactly in the middle of the forest. Under that tree there is a fairy circle called the dancing place of the goblins. There are several fairy circles in the forest of the yew, but the one under the yew tree in the middle has this legend connected to it. Many years ago, 2 farm servants, whose names were Tim and Iago, went out one day to work in the forest of the yew. Early in the afternoon, the country became covered with so dense a mist that the youths thought the sun was setting, and they prepared to go home. But when they came to the yew tree in the middle of the forest, which suddenly they found all white around them, they now thought it was too early to go home, and concluded to lie down under the yew tree and have a nap. By and by, Tim awoke to find his companion gone. He was much surprised at this, but concluded Iago had gone to the village on an errand of which they had been speaking before they fell asleep. So Tim went home, and to all inquiries concerning Iago answered, gone to the cobbler's in the village. But Iago was still absent, and now Tim was cross-questioned severely as to what had become of his fellow servant. Then he confessed that they had fallen asleep under the yew where the fairy circle was, and from that moment he had seen nothing more of Iago. They searched the whole forest over, and the whole country round, for many days, and finally Tim went to the Gwir Cyfarwydd, or conjurer, a common trade in those days, says the legend. The conjurer gave him this advice: go to the same place where you and the lad slept. Go there exactly a year after the boy was lost. Let it be on the same day of the year and at the same time of the day, but take care that you do not step inside the fairy ring. Stand on the border of the green circle you saw there, and the boy will come out with many of the goblins to dance. When you see him so near to you that you may take hold of him, catch him out of the ring as quickly as you can. These instructions were obeyed. Iago appeared, dancing in the ring with the Twithteg, goblins I'm assuming, and was promptly plucked forth. Do, cried Tom. How wan and pale you look! And don't you feel hungry, too?" "No," said the boy. "And if I did, have I not here in my wallet the remains of my dinner that I had before I fell asleep?" But when he looked in his wallet, the food was not there. "Well, it must be time to go home," he said, with a sigh, for he did not know that a year had passed by. His look was like a skeleton, and as soon as he had tasted food, he mouldered away. So, yeah, don't go sleeping in fairy circles under yew trees. It won't end. That's one thing you take from that story. Okay, so we've got five minutes until we've done the full hour. So I forgot to give out, so I'm going to head and stop this video. Thanks for popping in and listening. I hope you enjoyed what I've got. Since we are done with McCrimpton, next time around, if you are willing, I've actually got the first chapter out of Persuasion by Jane Austen. And that is what I will be starting out with tomorrow night. And thank you guys for coming around to listen to me read. And I hope you guys are doing well and continue to be safe and be well wherever you are and whatever type of isolation you have going for you. All right, so Jane Austen is tomorrow night. And if I have anything else that you guys want to recommend, let me know. I've also got a recording of the author of Crimson Tales that I'm actually going to be putting onto my podcast as a recording that you can listen to. And it is actually the recording of her reading the first chapter of one of her books from the Storyteller series, and they are available on Amazon. The fourth one is not available on Amazon, but should be by the end of the month, and all of them are available on Lulu if you want to look up for more tales of McCrimson and more of her poetry and more of her writing as well. She's even got a cookbook out there, a Druid cookbook, which looks kind of awesome. But tomorrow, if I'm lucky enough, I actually may have another piece of work for you that I will be reading from a first-time author who just got his first publishing something published for the first time. So we'll see if I can get that wrangled, and we can start with that and Jane Austen tomorrow. So talk to you guys later. Hope you have a good night, and thank you for stopping in.